All right. Hi, everybody. I know it's like 3:15 on day 2, so I could see the life getting sucked out of everybody's eyes right now.
And we all just want to see Serena, right?
Yeah, let's be honest. We know you guys are just trying to kill time. All right, so thank you for joining us in this breakout session. This is an advanced Zoom room session. I kind of did a quick checker on it. It seems like this is the right audience. This session, titled Pushing the Limits of Zoom Rooms, is about covering unconventional use cases and applications of Zoom rooms. We really want you guys to leave with some awesome ideas on how you can continue to bring IT innovation to your organization and really continue to spearhead, productivity and provide technological solutions to business critical needs. Quick introduction about myself. My name's Esther Yoon. I'm the product marketing manager for conference room solutions at Zoom. And I was like, which company? Yeah. And I am lucky enough to be up here with these 3 awesome panelists. I will be moderating this session. But this session is going to include, Ravi Sharma from Uber, Jimmy Yan from Hubspot, and Diogenes Martinez from Copart. So please give them a warm welcome. In regards to Q&A, this session I could see it getting really technical and into the weeds really quickly. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to respect everyone's time here. We're going to go through each of the topics with our panelists, and then for Q&A, please wait till after the session. And once this is over, we'll let you guys have free reign over these guys until Serena Williams goes on. But so please hold any questions till after the session. We'll make sure you guys have time with our panelists. So, as I mentioned before, here are their beautiful mugs. Can you guys just give a quick introduction about yourself before we jump into each of your topics? Can you explain who you are, what you do at your organization, and what were some problems you're looking to address with Zoom rooms? Ravi, do you want to start?
Sure.
Awesome.
Hi, my name is Ravi Sharma. I head UC and AV, global deployment of UC and AV at Uber. And essentially what that means is, when I come into work every day in the morning, it's my teams and my job to ensure that we provide the best experience to improve productivity of Uber employees in meeting spaces and all kind of meeting spaces, conference rooms, all hand spaces, et cetera.
Awesome. Thanks, Jimmy.
Yeah, so Jimmy Yan from HubSpot. I'm a principal collaboration engineer. And I really am responsible for the Zoom and Zoom room deployment at HubSpot, in addition to some AV and UC related tasks. And really, as I was explaining to Esther in the past was, it wasn't really Zoom rooms that were really solving for our needs, but it's just really Zoom in general. Before Zoom, we just didn't have the right collaboration platform. And having Zoom and Zoom rooms has just been really helped us collaborate. Not just locally, but help us define geographies and break barriers.
Diogenes?
Diogenes Martinez, Director of IT at Copart. The problem we were trying to solve was more of, I guess, uniting and collaborating a global distributed workforce. So that's what Zoom gave to us, the ability of an easy product to use that kind of gave us better communication with the expanded global team.
Awesome. So these are 3 very different organizations on paper, right? You're like Uber, HubSpot, Copart, what's the common denominator? So I was lucky enough to hand select these customers, and they're some of my favorite customers because these are the guys that have, really pushed it to the limits in terms of creativity. For Uber, it was redefining like scalability, right? For HubSpot, it was multi-purpose rooms. They were like, okay, how can we utilize these spaces and take it beyond the traditional conference room? And for Copart, it was just really fully redefining conference room. Like, what you think of conference room is not how Copart sees what a conference room is. Their image of conference room is, I guarantee it, very different from the image that you guys have in your head for conference room. And I'd love for them to really instill like how they've applied these really innovative approaches, and so that you can bring it to your organization and look at how you can optimize, each of your spaces, whatever space it may be, and video enable it, right? So with that said, I'm going to start off with Ravi at Uber. And we're going to explore how Uber pushed the limits of scalability, right? So before we go in, can you, Ravi, provide a quick overview or landscape of Uber's conference room setup?
Sure. I believe that Uber is in this unique position to test the limits of UC and AV deployment. And what I mean by that is, dictated by our business model, we have this need to have a physical presence in essentially every city that we operate in. And Uber operates in about 600 cities,
Wow.
64 countries, 6 continents, right? And of those, we have physical room deployments in about 150 cities across the globe. And that's a deployment of about 2,000 rooms. And these rooms are essentially used by 30,000 people. Mm-hmm. And they do, I would say, about 2 million meetings a year. Translates to about 45 million minutes a month. So it's all about scale at Uber and pushing the limits of essentially Zoom and our AV solutions.
Yeah. And by the way, Uber's been a customer of Zoom since 2015. And have you guys heard of Uber? I'm assuming yes. Yeah. Do you guys know Uber in 2015 versus now? Totally different, right, in terms of organization landscape. And so Ravi brings a really unique perspective of an organization who's had to scale at a ridiculous rate. And they've done such a great job in making sure their spaces are video enabled, and they've, were able to support their crazy growth trajectory. So, before we jump in, what's your favorite Zoom room?
Favorite Zoom room. I don't think my favorite Zoom room exists yet. What I mean by that is, we have fancy boardrooms, with really nice looking, nice equipment, et cetera. However, at this point in Uber's journey of UC and AV, we are all about scale. So, how do we ensure that we are able to design for scale? We are able to deploy at scale, how we are able to operationalize at scale without really breaking the bank, right? So we are essentially in a mode of redefining our conference room and special spaces standards with 3 things in focus. User experience, number 1. Easy to use, ensuring that we are compliant, ensuring that these rooms are easy to deploy process-wise, et cetera. Second, focus on operationalizing. When you're in 150 different cities, it is really, really critical that you standardize and operationalize. And so we focus on that, and then, of course, looking at the total cost of ownership, right? Not only bringing in fancy equipment and creating these rooms, but looking at a 5-year cost trajectory of AV and UC. That room doesn't exist yet, but we're building a brand new campus in the city, and I'm sure it'll exist by next year.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys heard that number, but 60+ countries. You guys, that type of scalability is so difficult. But to be honest, I'm not going to be impressed until you guys are in Antarctica. So, anyways, so
Name it the Penguin Room.
yeah, seriously. So what do you think made your massive Zoom Rooms deployment successful? What about Zoom helped you scale?
Yeah. So first of all, right, scale. That's been our biggest challenge. And like I mentioned, how do we design for scale, right? How do you design it in such a way that you can create cookie cutter rooms and be able to deploy it by procuring them in 60 different countries, the same equipment, right? It's a logistical nightmare. Right? How do you ensure that you have processes and partnerships in place with smart hand companies, for example, to ensure that you can deploy quickly and easily and then operationalize? And then the other big challenge is as you go into all these different countries, the rooms, the building codes, the standards are different everywhere. You really need the ability to customize your room deployment. And I think Zoom essentially allows us to do that.
Yeah.
If you cannot put audio in the ceiling, for example, you can put it on the table, right? If you want a single screen solution, you have that. If you need a dual screen solution, you have that. If a certain SKU is not available in a certain country, you have alternatives to do that. Versus some of these other providers that have set solutions that you have to deploy and figure things out. So our partnership with our workplace teams, partnership with our vendors, partnership with our manufacturers, or Zoom's tie up with these manufacturers, that has been very key to rolling out our Zoom rooms globally and at scale.
Awesome. So what are some of your wildest Zoom rooms achievements, and what's the business need that drove it?
Sure, but I wouldn't call it wildest per se.
Yeah.
But we've stretched Zoom to the limit in, I would say, two examples. Let me give two examples. So first is the way we do our global all hands, and global all hands essentially is our company meeting that we do every week, and it's basically an open invite for the entire company to join. 18,000 people.
Wow.
And we get attendance varying from 5,000 to about 11,000, depending on the week. But what we've done essentially is we've created this studio in our headquarters, and we have 45 different all hand spaces across the globe. And what's great about using these spaces as Zoom rooms is that at any given point in the same meeting, any of these spaces can be presenter or attendee at the same time, right? So we have presentations going on from any of these locations at any given time, and Q&A going on from any of them. So one of the examples is just last week, we were able to bring in, so somebody asked a question, and one of our legal senior leadership was at an offsite in Chicago. And using a Zoom room, we were able to bring that person in, a live feed, in a live Q&A session from a complete, some kind of an auditorium, out in Chicago. Now, we haven't done bringing people in from underwater, which you saw this morning, but
Not yet.
but yeah, coming soon, I guess.
Yeah.
Uber submarine, yeah.
You Scuba Steve.
Yeah, and the second example I would give it, we have Zoom room kits, is what we call them, right? So Uber goes on into these different cities, and we have to deploy quickly, enable our business to get up and running really quickly. And so we have Zoom kits in a Pelican case, right? It has the Mac Mini, it has the iPad, it has the audio equipment, and all you got to do is carry that kit with a Wi-Fi kit, and then drop it, attach it to a screen, and we're up and running day one, right?
Wow.
And so yeah, we do that kind of speed of delivery.
So like before you guys even have your infrastructure solidified, you guys are able
Zoom's
to.
up and running.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so last question. What's your conference room strategy for the next year?
Sure. So like I mentioned, new campus coming up, right? And so we're looking to redesign the conference room, and that'll be our big deliverable for mid of next year. We are looking at what we call human-centric design, and this is basically a concept from IDEO, but looking at furniture design, lighting design, looking at ADA compliance, looking at ensuring 180-degree coverage of a room with right intelligent framing, for example. So yeah, we're looking to redesign our spaces, and one thing I would say is our redesign includes the aspects of how to protect your UC from our users, essentially, right? And what I mean by that is, the conference room user is a very unique animal who looks at, who's very, the ingenuity of ability to break stuff is amazing. So
We've all been there.
I think you're talking to the right crowd, by the way.
Yeah, and so, how do you make sure you're designed for operationalizing these things and, designed for human behavior? So that's something that we're looking at. And next year, it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Redesigning it, yeah.
Awesome. And like I mentioned before, you guys can catch Ravi after this and really get into the specific of like what's human-centric design, right? What are kind of techniques or strategies that you're exploring? So thanks, Ravi. That was awesome. All right. So next, we have Jimmy at Hubspot. And Jimmy, I know you're pushing the limits in a very unique way as well in terms of space utilization. When I was on a call with Jimmy, he was like, he just casually, and I'll let him bring it up, but he casually told me the story of one of his favorite conference rooms, and I was like, hold up, backtrack, what do you guys do? So he's here today to share with you guys how he leverages his conference room space and brings so much more into it. And before we go into that, can you tell us kind of your conference room landscape?
Yeah, so we've been a Zoom customer for about 2 years now. We're about 2,200 employees with 250 Zoom rooms and 5 what we call multi-use rooms.
Yep.
And what was the other?
Yeah, so number
Yeah.
of Zoom rooms, number of countries, number of
Yep,
employees.
and we're deployed in 7 countries as well.
Awesome. So what's your favorite Zoom room?
It's the Nye conference room, which
Let's see.
this one right here. It looks like a living room.
Yeah, the comfy-looking
it's
one.
one of our unique multifunctional, multi-use rooms, and it's named after Bill Nye, the science guy.
Awesome.
So
Cool.
So can you explain what drove the creation of your multi-use rooms?
Yes.
Like, what is it? Can you explain it?
yeah, absolutely. So Hubspot, we've just been growing like crazy in terms of employees, and we got an opportunity to kind of rebuild some space. And we're located in a mill building in Cambridge, Mass. So think about this as an old furniture building. And this building is actually 26 buildings stitched together. So a lot of brick, a lot of unconventional spaces all around.
Yeah.
So when we were planning the space, we pulled the business as to, Zoom was growing so fast, we were adopting, aside from building more Zoom rooms, they wanted specialty rooms. It's just part of our culture, right? So the request came in as, we wanted a game room, we wanted rooms that our employees can kind of go, we're an open office environment. So where employees can just go and unwind.
Yeah.
So we were like, this would be a great opportunity to kind of put all those together and build a space where we kind of keep it still a Zoom room,
Yeah.
but then also have other uses of that room.
Yeah.
And this is kind of where we got that.
Yeah, it sounds like it was very like millennial kind of culture driven,
Yes, yeah.
right?
I don't like to use that word, but yeah.
Yeah, sorry, the M word. So yeah, what exactly have you actually outfitted these rooms with? Like, what makes it multi-use?
Yeah, so in this room, I think we were a little ahead of the curve with the 3 screens. We were hoping for multi-share 2 years ago, right? But now we got it, so it's awesome.
Yep.
But general purpose use is a Zoom room, right? It's got freeform furniture, it's like a couch. But also outfitted in there is we have a Sonos system in there for music. It's got an Xbox system, so we see a lot of guys go in there and play games, as well as cable TV. And all that is controlled and tied in with a Crestron panel. And for users, it actually was really easy for them to just kind of switch inputs. And on the back end, there's a RMC switcher that kind of just does all that processing. And then as far as audio goes, I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's ceiling mics up there from Shure, MXA 910s. Because we couldn't put tabletop mics, the couches are also configurable, so a lot of our teams will go in there for kind of off-site, on-site activities. So this way, we kind of put the ceiling mics up top, be able to cover that space. The room itself is about 300 square feet, so you got that front spot, and then in the back spot, we actually have a conference table that's used for more conventional meetings if they wanted to.
So you use the Crestron as kind of the switcher between the 3 components.
Right.
And you have one AV system, and based on the input that you select off, what was the Crestron model?
DM RMC 4K, so it's the video switcher in the back end.
So you're able to book the room, and then you leverage it as an Xbox game room,
Yeah.
kind of a sound system
Yeah.
or a conference room
Right,
solution.
so the use case is it's default Zoom room, but if someone wants to go in there and play Xbox, on the panel it says Xbox, press Xbox, fire up the Xbox that's in the cabinet,
Yeah.
and you're playing games.
Wow, that sounds awesome. I mean, from what I see, a lot of times, facility managers, they look to kind of accommodate these demands, right? Of like, I want that game room.
Yeah.
And what they end up doing is they end up dedicating a whole space for a game room, right? And dedicating a conference room space. But what you've done is kind of consolidated and kind of maximized your space resource.
Absolutely, yeah.
Awesome. So, what about Zoom rooms helped you achieve this setup?
So I love the fact that Zoom Rooms itself, it's plug and play, right? We all know that. In terms of this room, we just had the hardest part was really designing the room.
Yeah.
Once we designed the room acoustically, the furniture, integrating Zoom was the easy part, right? Because everything there's always a product out there that can actually match whatever it's from a mic, speaker, display standpoint. That was the easiest part of the whole project. It was really picking out the fabric. That was probably the hardest part.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And don't ask facilities how much that calculus is.
Yeah. Do you guys even work at HubSpot? Like,
Yeah,
oh yeah,
we
I'm
are
just gonna book
hiring.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the ability to customize these rooms is the greatest flexibility of deploying them.
Yeah.
And that makes this possible.
Right.
Yeah, so you guys just had like creative reign, right? It was kind of limited to your imagination. Like, what do you want to do?
Yeah, not to
And
go too deep into the other end of it, but we weren't limited to what peripherals we can use, right? We weren't limited to what screens we can use. It was, there's always products, and I love the fact that, Logitech, Ava, and all these guys are out here, because you can just see the landscape of all these products are just coming up, and there's so much possibility in terms of what you want your mic and audio speakers to be, systems to be.
Awesome.
So
And
how do I get that in my living room?
Here's my number, probably.
Yeah. So how's been the response so far to this room at HubSpot?
It's been great. I mean, as I said, a lot of teams will book these to actually use this as we call it our on-site, off-site, right? So before this room was built, a lot of teams will go and have all-day sessions, maybe at a hotel or a conference center to kind of brainstorm and kind of get away from the office. We see a lot of teams actually just using this room, book it, because it's comfortable, right? It's not, I mean, these couches are comfortable. We're actually a dog-friendly environment.
Awesome.
So people bring their dogs in here and they hang out. And you're not sitting around a board table, like trying to have these conversations as a team. And to the fact that, you can switch off, watch a movie, play game, like, it doesn't sound like work, but I feel like it's, for us, we're being more productive when we can unwind.
Yeah, and I just like the way you guys set it up. It doesn't look like your typical conference room, And
It's a living room.
yeah.
Actually, this is my living room.
Awesome. And then last question, like, how are you going to evolve your conference room for the next year? Like, what's happening?
So we're always continuously improving in terms of trying to improve the overall experience of our Zoom rooms. We test peripherals we're always looking at peripherals, right?
Yeah.
Like the latest and greatest products that are out there. We try to test it, make sure that we can adjust. And we gather feedback from our, especially through Zoom and the feedback feature. But we also pull our users and our stakeholders, be like, hey, what can we do better? And how can we improve? But to be more specific in terms of Zoom rooms, like we're doubling down on whiteboard collaboration. We do a lot of whiteboarding at HubSpot, and we still do it the traditional way. But we love products like D10 and Captivo. The end goal is to outfit digital collaboration or whiteboarding into every single conference room we have.
Yeah. And like the beauty of this setup is there's no rip and replace, right? If you wanted to add whiteboarding, you could just add an analog whiteboard, bring Captivo in, and then sync it with your Zoom rooms.
Right.
So instead of rip and replacing, you're just continually making iterative enhancements, right? So it's like 2.0, 3.0.
Right.
It's awesome.
Exactly. I want to actually take Ravi's ideas.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks, Jimmy.
Thanks.
All right. So Diogenes Martinez here is with Copart, as he mentioned, and what Copart is doing is really redefining conference room. What you think is conference room is totally different from what their perspective of conference room is. And, you typically think of this kind of executive boardroom, but they really push the limits of that definition. And so before we go into that, let's look at Copart's Zoom Rooms landscape. Could you provide like a quick number of rooms deployed, all that,
Sure.
number of countries, or a number of offices?
Sure. We're pretty new to Zoom. We are probably on pace to have about 50 Zoom rooms by the end of the year.
Yeah.
We have 5,000 employees. We're in 5 countries. And my favorite room, which you're going to ask me, is the
Yeah.
atrium.
The atrium. Awesome. And then can you kind of quickly describe what kinds of Zoom rooms do you have? I know this is a lead-in, but yeah.
So we have your typical Zoom rooms. We have them in conference rooms as well. That's how we started. And I think based on the ease of use of the product, we expanded it into different spaces as our business expanded. We use them in trailers.
Yeah.
We use it in our ranch.
Yep. Ranch.
We have a 250-acre
Trailers.
ranch and about a 1,500 capacity actual ranch with 6 classrooms next to it.
Yep.
And in the atrium, like I mentioned, and we have our all-hands meeting with our CEO.
Awesome. So, yes, I just went over. So this is the atrium. This is the ranch that Diogenes mentioned. I know this one
It's
was
early
in
on.
construction.
Correct.
And then these are the trailers, the different types of trailers. And the cool thing about this is like these rooms really redefine meeting space, right? What were the business drivers to bringing Zoom rooms into these spaces?
I think when we started using the product in our actual headquarters and the ease of use,
Yeah.
when our business expanded to do these trailers, we had a business justification for doing those trailers and the ranch. The business itself asked for it. We want this product. I mean, it's so easy to use when we go into a conference room in our office that we wanted to extend that beyond your typical conference room. So they requested it based on how easy the product was to use and how efficient it was.
Awesome. And how did you end up outfitting? Like, how did you end up outfitting the atrium, the ranch, the trailer? It's so unique. It's so cool.
So the trailer was a tricky one. So the trailer is essentially, it's a Copart yard on wheels. We use it for our catastrophe events. So kind of Katrina, Michael. Whenever there's an event, we deploy these 4 trailers. They're 53-foot, 18-wheelers. And we're pretty much a yard on wheels. So wherever the event is, we kind of set up shop and we run the business from there. So it was very easy, since this is an office environment that it's on wheels, to kind of transition the corporate conference room into that. The internet access is provided through a SquireTech satellite service, which we had even before Zoom, just to provide the internet access. It gives us about a 25 meg speed up and down wherever we are in the US. We can also scale up if needed. And sometimes we use a cradle point to offset, a cradle point LTE appliance to offset when we need more data capacity. But yeah, pretty much wherever we set up shop, we have internet access, and we are able to expand that over to the Zoom room communication.
So it sounds like for the trailers, you go to these catastrophe destinations and you kind of just have this dedicated video-enabled space for people to kind of relax, sync up with, maybe HQ.
Correct, different purposes. The employees are there set up for sometimes months at a time. So it can be used for communicating back to their team, communicating to others, and also for our business partners, for them to use as well if they need to have a meeting or use it for their communication.
Awesome. And then could you kind of go over how did you end up outfitting this atrium?
So the atrium was dual purpose. So this is for our CEO. We first started with an all hands in the underground. And we set that up with the help of Zoom. And we quickly learned we had a few things that we didn't quite like the way it worked. With Zoom, for example, when we're controlling which video, we have about, typical setup, we have about 4 Logitech pan-tilt Zoom, your standard Shure microphone, your speakers in the ceiling. And as we remote control these cameras, we noticed that when we connect to another camera, it's just a hot cut. There's no chance to focus and get to the right character and do all these things. So when we did the atrium, we added a video switcher. We added a Roland VR HD50, which gave us the capability, or is giving us the capability, we just recently added it, to preview that shot.
Yeah.
So we're able to select which camera beforehand, before it actually switches over to the live stream.
Yeah.
We're able to use a chroma key. We're able to do picture-in-picture. We're able to do lower thirds, add name, title, information about what the presentation is about. and then do a nice transition to a focused, ready camera ahead of time. So it's totally changed
Wow.
the professional look
Yeah.
of our prior meetings.
So Copart's going full like ESPN.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That's how Nick practices his shot of the week with the highlights on the picture-in-picture.
And then could you cover off on the ranch a little bit?
So the ranch here is was halfway done. This is Copart's kind of location to do events instead of renting out hotels or venues. This is where we have our corporate events, and we also use it for team events. So if one of the departments wanted to have a powwow session, they're able to book it. But again, the business asked for wanting to have Zoom rooms in that room. The ease of use, the ability to, even on our, even from our trailer, even though it's satellite, low latency, Zoom performance was still spot on. So here at the ranch, same thing. It just gave the ability, so we had a team outing or we had a venue or performance, and you were based out in another location, it still gave the ability for you to be part of that session. So it really expanded, when you couldn't attend, to still be part of that, two-way communication of those events that we do at the ranch.
Awesome. And what's your conference room strategy? So you guys have already done some amazing things. Like, what do you have planned for the next year?
We're going to the moon? No,
Yeah.
no, we're
On a
not
trailer.
going.
Catastrophe on the moon. You'll be there.
No, SpaceX. No, I think what we're going to focus in is more on strategically work with the departments actually for them to take advantage of Zoom to the next level. So for example, working with HR, for them to have a strategy of their interview process and their vetting of candidates and maybe leverage Zoom for every candidate, or working with operations training department for them to do all the recordings, all their training, and be able to offer training to any employees no matter where they are.
Yeah.
So I think it's just being more tactical, more strategic with the departments and making sure that they not just only know how to use the product, but they know how to take advantage based on the department's needs.
Awesome. Well, thanks. Diogenes is super cool. When I jumped on the phone with him and, I was just trying to see hey, what's going on? I heard you guys are doing some cool stuff. I was blown away. These are applications that are so unconventional, but they were so organic and driven by a business need. I was I got to share this with, the larger crowd. And so I'm really thankful that you were able to join us and share how you deployed these across, your organization. These three panelists, they have leveraged, the hardware open ecosystem and combined it with their creativity. And really, their organizations have benefited it. They've brought new innovations that I haven't seen. And I hope that, this has been helpful. But it's really, these aren't just Zoom rooms. There's so much more, right? And I think that's the whole point of it. Your space can be so much more than a conference room. It could leverage so much more than just the displays and standard mic setups. Don't think of the traditional route. Let your IT imagination go crazy. A lot of really cool things can come out of it, and they're just examples of some things that have come out of that. So. With that said, I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for sharing your guys' insights. And I specifically chose them because not only are they strategic thinkers, but they have firsthand experience actually deploying these rooms, which is so important, especially for IT managers. You guys are the ones bringing these rooms to life. And so, I wanted to end this session a little early, not kind of have an open Q&A, but have a more intimate setting where you guys can directly engage with them and ask them specific questions on how they can help you innovate your meeting spaces across your organization and bring a bit more thought leadership and creativity, right? Because I know AV guys, I know IT guys, you guys like to tinker. You guys are engineers. You guys are creative. Let's put that to use. And Zoom rooms will really empower you guys to redefine conference room and push it to the limits. So let's give them a round of applause. Thank you, guys.